Good evening, Dr. Wolgamon. This is my informative speech on pre-hospital stroke scales. As you can see, I do not have an audience. All of my roommates are out of town for a funeral, but hope all is well. Fast. Many words and stories come to mind whenever I hear the word fast. Stories that I would like to tell. But what about those people who all of a sudden can't tell their story? Fun times and memories can turn into confusion, sudden weakness, and garbled speech. What comes to mind when you hear the word FAST? A pre-hospital stroke scale? Well, FAST happens to be an acronym for a pre-hospital stroke assessment used to assess signs and symptoms if a stroke is suspected. F stands for facial droop, A is for arm drift, S is for speech, and T is for time to call 911. Strokes are very serious medical issues, but if you can recognize signs and symptoms of a stroke and perform the FAST assessment, someone's life can be saved. Today, I will be going over how to properly use the FAST assessment. First, we're going to go over F, which again stands for facial droop. The best way to assess F is going to be to say, hey, smile really big for me, show me all of your teeth. When the person does this, if they can do this, check for a facial droop on one side or the other. If this is prevalent, this is a sign of a stroke. Next, we're going to be going over A, which stands for arm drift. The best way to assess arm drift is step back, grab the patient's arms, and have them hold them straight out in front of them, palms upward. When you do this, have the person close their eyes. When they close their eyes, it makes the brain take over the equilibrium balance instead of using the eyes or the ears. After you have their arms straight out in front of them, palm up, say, hey, hold your hands up for as long as you can for me. Then, let their hands go. When you let their hands go, see if their arms drift to one side or the other, or if one side just has paralysis. If one of these signs are prevalent, this is a sign of a stroke. Next, we're going to move on to speech. The best way to assess speech, if you know the person suspected of having a stroke, is to simply say, hey, can you tell me your name? When's your birthday? Where are you from? Or where are you at right now? If you yourself don't know the answers to these questions, simply have them repeat after you by saying something like, repeat after me. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. If this happens to come out garbled, or with inappropriate words, or if they can't respond at all, this is a sign of a stroke. Next, we're going to move on to T, which stands for time to call 911. It's essential to call 911 as soon as you suspect signs or symptoms of a stroke, because with a stroke, time equals brain. A stroke is defined as a sudden death or loss of tissue in the brain due to a lack of oxygen. There are two kinds of strokes. There's an ischemic stroke, which is a clot within the vessels of the brain, or there's a hemorrhagic stroke, which is a rupture or a bleed within the brain, creating pressure. Both kinds of strokes are deadly. But if you can recognize signs and symptoms and perform the FAST stroke assessment, someone can receive adequate care. Once again, strokes are serious medical issues. But if you can perform the FAST assessment, you can save someone's life or livelihood. Once again, FAST stands for F, facial droop, A, arm drift, S is for speech, and T is for time to call 911. A stroke is like a snake. It will unveil itself and strike at any opportunity. But if you can recognize signs and symptoms and perform the FAST assessment, someone's life or livelihood could be saved. Your grandmother will thank you, and the man at the gas station will realize how lucky he was to have who knew what they were doing. Most importantly, if you can recognize signs and symptoms and perform the FAST assessment adequately and get 911 on scene and the person to the hospital within a certain window, minimal brain damage could occur. And after all, knowledge is power. Thank you.